This is the Royal Report.
Good evening and welcome to the Royal Report. I'm Caroline DeRusso. It has been a huge week, and here's what's coming up on the program tonight. The Sussexes are reportedly in panic mode after being savagely mocked. We'll give you the latest. Fan favourite Princess Kate has been spotted riding in armoured army vehicles. Is there anything that woman can't do? And Esther Krakue joins us from London to discuss the massive change in Prince Harry's latest court case. But before we get to that, the royal PR machine is in full swing this week on both sides of the pond. The Sussexes are well progressed in polishing their image. They've reportedly brought Ariana Grande's stylist on board to sort out the facade of Casa de Sussex. And Prince Harry was out and about this week at a benefit at his very best when he's self-deprecating. I think we can all agree that that's where Harry does his work and he should do more of it. We'll touch on this more later in the show. That said, remember that Family Guy episode which mocked Harry and Meghan a few weeks ago?
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Del Taco.
I shouldn't have left the made-up nonsense.
Well, apparently that has caused a stir because it shone a light on the hypocrisy which underlies the Sussexes' whole Royals of the People shtick. And this can only be a speed bump in their brand recovery. Look, we all had a laugh at the skit because, like South Park, the lack of self-awareness was so well illustrated. And it's very hard to recover from perfectly pitched satire. Back in the UK, Charles's charities are undergoing a rebranding of their own ahead of the King's 75th birthday. After all, there's almost always room to spruce up a septuagenarian and their accoutrements, but also to help distinguish between the King's charities and those helmed by Prince William. It's just another part of the lean-in, clarifying and modernising of the royal family. And Camilla has also sent a brand message of her own when she accompanied the King to Parliament for his first speech this week. She was wearing the state diadem. Now, the state diadem was the Queen's favourite tiara, which she wore to her coronation and to every state opening. It should be familiar to Australians because it's also featured on a number of the Queen's effigies on our coins, including the last effigy commemorating her reign. Now, if that isn't sending a message, I don't know what is. In any event, the news has been packed this week with various royal repositionings, and don't expect it to slow down anytime soon. Joining us now is our expert panel, News Corp columnist Louise Roberts and news.com.au entertainment reporter Bronte Coy. Ladies, welcome back to the show. Bronte, I'll start with you. The royal PR machine is working hard. Meghan has been spotted, and with what the papers are describing as a PR guru, but I understand they're actually a celebrity stylist of Ariana Grande. Still, this goes to the point that Meghan is rebranding to restore her failing image.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jamie Mizrahi is probably the most famous person you've never heard of. I've followed her on Instagram for years, so I'm actually a bit of a fan. But she is a stylist to all the top stars, Adele, Jennifer Lawrence, Ariana Grande. She knows everybody in Hollywood. And Meghan was spotted at that Katy Perry concert recently with all the A-listers. Cameron Diaz, Zoe Saldana was there. But so was Jamie. And Meghan and Jamie apparently were getting very close and having a chat. Now, this makes a lot of sense because, you know, we've spoken for so long, most of this year, in fact, about this rebrand that's apparently coming from Meghan. There's been endless, it seems, leaks from her camp about, you know, what this next chapter might look like, and it's all building, it's all in the works. That's yet to fully materialise in any significant way, but of course, what goes with a big rebrand is, of course, a whole new look. So a lot can be said with a new wardrobe. We saw Meghan go from Suits actress to royal, and that was a significant change in her look. The next one after that was, of course, the more low-key Californian resident, but who's still extremely famous. And now this is going to be the next chapter. So it makes a lot of sense that she gets someone like Jamie, who's so well-connected, knows everyone in Hollywood, and has incredible credentials on side to help her sell herself again as the new Meghan.
But Louise, there's more than just the message, isn't it? Like, their actions need to start levelling up because that's where they've been falling short and people have noticed.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think they've ever done anything wrong sartorially. They've always looked fabulous, particularly Meghan going out in her Hermes, and of course Harry with his Dior suits, etc. But even the best celebrity stylist in the world, and from what Bronte says, this woman is pretty amazing. Even they can't sort of massage away their habit of saying one thing and doing another. I mean, Harry recently has said the world is on fire because of climate change, yet try and stop them from buckling into a private jet to go on holidays. You know, leave us alone, give us our privacy, but we will commercialise parts of our privacy and that of our estranged family. So I don't know how a stylist is going to help them with their terrible habit of saying one thing and being hypocritical.
And Bronte, recently on the show, we showed the Family Guy cartoon that was taking the mickey out of Harry and Meghan. And it has hit the mark. But it's been reported that the Sussexes are in a bit of panic mode over that satirical piece.
Yeah, look, it was lighthearted. Of course it was. It's Family Guy. It's silly. But the other thing that Family Guy is usually pretty on the nose, and also it generally leans really closely in with pop culture trends. So for Harry and Meghan to be such a pop culture punchline, and of course this comes off the back of the South Park skit, again, in good fun, but, you know, they are quickly becoming a regular punchline, and that's very damaging for their brand. They aren't being taken seriously, I suppose, is the biggest issue there. And also this Family Guy skit specifically really leans into the whole joke that they get paid to basically do nothing, which of course comes only months after the Spotify deal collapsed and all those really damaging labels were sort of thrown at them about being grifters, lazy, not delivering the product that they had said they would. So, you know, this is the kind of joke that they probably can't commercially afford to have gather more pace. So, of course, you can understand why this is becoming quite alarming for them, that this is the kind of thing that they're getting laughed at about, and also that this is coming from deep within Hollywood. Hollywood is their new home. Hollywood is the place where they are supposedly surrounded by peers and have been embraced. So for these jokes to be coming from the industry, yeah, it's got to be concerning, I would say.
But Louise, after being pilloried by Family Guy, the Sussexes were described as being on an express train to obscurity. Is that probably a little too rough?
Well, I think elements of that are very true, Cara. I mean, that phrase is courtesy of a PR expert in the US, Ryan McCormick, who says that they need to embrace the way people are taking the mick out of them. They need to develop a sense of humour and fast. They need to develop a thick skin and fast, and be a bit sort of self-deprecating, sort of poke fun at themselves. I'm amazed they haven't seen this as a great commercial avenue for them, because clearly they've got South Park and Family Guy who are making a stack of cash on the back of pillaring them, but they should actually get on board with this. It would actually make them more likeable and give them something different from their, you know, their very tight shtick of just bagging out their estranged family. People need to move on. They need to move on, and they're at the risk of becoming obsolete, let alone irrelevant in a way.
And on that, part of Harry's speech at the Stand Up for Heroes benefit this week, he did try and make light of his rather tumultuous year. Here it is.
Obviously, I was deeply honoured when Bob asked me to debut my stand-up act with you all tonight. I was so relieved to be invited back, but then I started to question whether his invite for me to actually do stand-up was in fact his idea of a joke. Either way, due to the shockingly low representation of gingers last year, and out of respect for my fellow endangered species, here I am, reporting for duty.
Bronte, you know, comedy's often a good way of dealing with serious issues. How do you think his speech overall was pitched, and do you think it landed with the audience?
This is Harry at his absolute finest. You said it at the top of the show, Caro, and this is Harry speaking to the military community where he feels the most comfortable. They're his people. He's so inspirational to them, and he gets inspiration from them also. And he's being funny. That's the Harry we miss so much. That's the Harry that everyone loved back in the day. And that self-deprecating humour, that self-awareness is something that just seems to have been lacking so much, especially over the last year. So watching that clip was almost a relief to say, he's still in there. He can still make a joke about himself. He can still be silly. And it was exactly that. It was so well received. It got huge laughs at the time. And this is Harry doing exactly what he should be doing. It's exactly what he does best. And it's a reminder of why we all loved him. So more of that, please, Harry. Just more of that.
And Louise, I think that's pretty fair, right? Like we've had enough of the airing of the laundry. That's been very serious and very unfun and not great in, for family relations, so to speak. But this is the Harry of old, isn't it?
It is absolutely, and to Bronte's point, it's the Harry that we love, and he's so comfortable. I've often felt that, sort of watching back elements of the Oprah interview, he sort of makes his point, but he doesn't seem entirely comfortable. Whereas, of course, Meghan just goes off-piste all the time and is more than happy to bag her in-laws. But Harry's very much in his comfort zone when he's doing that sort of Mick take on himself. When he's sort of, it's that English humour, which, of course, Meghan would try to understand, but it's not in her blood the way it is for Harry. So, it's a great look for him to be more humorous and be more down to earth, definitely, rather than spiteful and vengeful.
Fair enough. And Louise, while I'm still with you, look, we know that Harry does very well out of Instagram ads. Obviously, they've got a whole number of ways that they make money. And look, while he has no interest in the duty of being a royal, he has no issue with the monetising of it.
It certainly doesn't. It's been their business model for some time now, hasn't it? And there was a study out of the UK this week of Nepo babies, which is the children of famous people who then decide to go into the same industry as their parents, therefore getting a supreme commercial and contact networking advantage. So the view is, if Harry set up a new professional Instagram account, #PrinceHarry, he could earn up to $50,000 Australian per post, which, is probably small fry compared to the likes of Kim Kardashian, who makes about $1 million per post. But it's somewhere to start, I guess, in a way, and it would lend a certain element of authenticity to him in a way. So it could be quite lucrative. He does have a Prince Harry account at the moment, but it's mainly pictures of Invictus and of his late grandmother, and also I notice a very carefully curated and probably approved selection of photos of Meghan. So perhaps something a bit more down to earth may work for him, I think.
Now, Bronte, the rift between the Sussexes and the rest of the family is leading to a bit of a tug-of-war on friendships. Even Princess Eugenie hasn't been spared, so who's trying to keep the peace and who's taking sides?
Yeah, it's kind of like a high-profile divorce, isn't it? Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of people having to sort of gingerly step between two camps, especially Eugenie and Beatrice, who are so close with their family, but are also Harry's really only friends in the family at this point. So in terms of their broader circle, the Hollywood circle has been a very awkward one because the people there generally trade on status and connection, and all of a sudden they've got Harry and Meghan in their backyard, but they've also got the royal family, who's very stable and really the highest connection you can make in the world, and they're trying to sort of keep the peace between both. And some of the biggest players in that is Idris Elba, for example, who's of course a very well-known actor. He was the DJ at Harry and Meghan's weddings, obviously very good friends with them, but he's also he has a role with the King's charity. So then there's Edward Enninful, who was the Vogue editor in the UK, who helped Meghan put together that guest edit cover of the, Vogue UK back when she was living in England as a royal, and he also has a role with the King's Foundation. So there's two there that are towing the line very carefully between both. The Clooneys as well are very good friends with Harry and Meghan. They actually flew the couple to Lake Como in their private jet. They do love a private jet, don't they? Right after their wedding. But they are also very close with the royals. And then, of course, you have the Beckhams, who at the other end of the scale were very close with Harry and Meghan. But very recently, David Beckham has been in talks to take on an ambassador role with the King. So they've made their position a little bit clearer following reports that Harry and Meghan had accused them of leaking stories about them to the press, and that all got quite messy. But on the whole, what we're seeing is people just trying very hard to see which way the wind's blowing, because you never really know. Harry and Meghan's stock at the moment is definitely on the decline, whereas, as I said, the royal family's is quite stable, and I don't really see that changing. But, they want to sort of keep all of them close because Hollywood's all about status and connection.
Hollywood is absolutely all about status and connection, and I just find it so interesting watching the way people try and bridge that gap or walk that really fine line, because it's very easy to upset people in that world, and the media are all watching. Anyway, ladies, thank you so much. Louise Roberts and Bronte Coy, thank you for joining us. We will see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Now, coming up, Prince Harry's latest court case has just taken an unexpected turn. You won't want to miss this. Welcome back to the show. Joining us now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, fabulous to have you back. Harry's defamation case is back in the courts this week. Some media has pitched it as a bit of a win for the Prince, and others say he's lost some skin. So what's the story?
So the High Court judge in this case ruled that the case can actually go forward. So we obviously know that this case that Prince Harry has brought forward is in conjunction with a bunch of other people as well. So Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, and they're all claiming that the Associated newspapers actually engaged in illegal phone hacking and illegal activities to actually gather information about them. So the win here, quote unquote, is the fact that the case can move forward. The huge kind of loss in this case is the fact that the judge ruled that information that the Associated newspapers, so the publishers of the Daily Mail, for instance, released during the Leveson inquiry back in 2011, I believe, cannot be used in this case. Now, that's a huge blow in the sense that it was, basically one of the only records we know of any sort of testimony that the Associated newspaper has, not necessarily of confessing that they've engaged in phone hacking. Obviously, they deny that in this case and any cases of the past, but actually confidential information regarding how they've gathered information around certain public figures. And from, Prince Harry's earlier testimony this year when he was being grilled by the Associated newspaper's lead barrister, he doesn't seem to understand how these matters work. He actually genuinely believes that all the information that was published about him was obtained via illegal phone hacking. And the barrister really made easy work, like work of him, because he actually highlighted the fact that a lot of the information that they got about Prince Harry was published by the palace. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, the judge does recognize this, I suspect, because he said that, the claimants in this case should temper their expectations. So we don't actually know all the information that these the claimants have to bring forward this case, but it doesn't look very positive, particularly after what we saw of Prince Harry being grilled by the lead barrister.
Oh, look, there's plenty more to run on that one. No doubt we'll be coming back to it in a few weeks' time. Now, while Harry and Meghan are desperately trying to panel beat their image, they keep doing things which appear to run counter to that. This week, there's a report of another jaunt on a private jet and a $43,000 date night. The hypocrisy's stunning, isn't it, Esther?
It is stunning, considering Prince Harry is the patron of a charity that actually tries to push for sustainable travel. So God only knows why they decided to fly via private jet owned by a Texas oil tycoon from California to Las Vegas, when it's really a 4-hour drive. Most people can make that quite comfortably. The reality is most people don't have a problem with how the Sussexes live their lives. It's the fact that they're so patronizing and hypocritical towards the public. They don't really seem to understand that the general public might know a lot more about these issues that we tend to engage with in our daily lives because we don't have a mansion in Montecito. So for them to preach about sustainable travel, for example, and have the goal to travel to Katy Perry concerts by a private jet is just, it's sad, but it's not unsurprising given this couple's antics.
Yeah, definitely not unsurprising. Last week on the show, we talked about how Kate is the most active royal, and this week she's been out and about in camo. Can you run us through this story?
Yeah, so Princess Catherine paid a visit to the Welsh Cavalry, formerly known as the Queen's Dragoon Guards, which is basically known as kind of the foremost reconnaissance wing of the army. So it's not surprising that she actually wore camo, because that is their specialty in the armed forces. But she's taken over a role that was previously a role of the Queen Mother up until she passed in 2002. And you can really see her engaging with the soldiers during her trip. She actually received a brooch from one of the soldiers, which belonged to the Queen Mother up until she passed in 2002. And this is one of the traditions that we see a king's wife tends to take on this role in the Queen's Dragoon Guard.
Now, this week, Prince William was in Singapore for the Earthshot Awards ceremony. Here's what he had to say.
The last year has been one of great change and even greater challenge. A year in which the effects of the climate crisis have become too visible to be ignored. And a year that has left so many feeling defeated, their hope dwindling. However, as we have seen tonight, hope does remain. The light of optimism is burning bright in our Earthshot finalists.
Esther, there was quite the myriad of A-listers and dignitaries, wasn't there?
There were, yes. Prince William has the privilege of being surrounded by A-list celebrities, particularly when he has these initiatives that he wants to champion. I will say it was quite a contrast, him being at this short prize in Singapore with Prince Harry, because he actually flew commercial and he banned all of his staff from flying private, which is, quite a difference from his brother Prince Harry. But it's amazing that he's been able to champion this cause. Obviously, environmental issues is close to his heart, as well as his father. And he has actually engaged a lot with local entrepreneurs and innovators in Singapore. And that's what this prize is really for, to try and push innovation in the sustainability industry and see how we can find solutions for the future.
Also this week, King Charles gave his first speech to Parliament. The Princess Royal again accompanied him as their gold stick in waiting. But what were your takeaways, the main takeaways from the speech?
So the main takeaways from the speech is obviously very political. He's basically outlining the government's plan for the next Parliament. And he effectively just wrote he said what he was told to say. He had a speech in front of him and he was laying out the Conservatives' agenda. So on the political front, obviously, it was very much kind of the Conservatives' last hope to try and win re-election. I do remember one part of the speech where you could see it stuck in his throat a little bit when he was talking about the renewal of new oil and gas licenses in the North Sea. Obviously, we know that the King is very environmentally friendly, and so that's not something that would have personally gone down well, but it is the agenda for the government, and he had to be professional and show a sense of duty and not really react to how most people suspect he really felt about it. But overall, it was a good speech. It was very calmly delivered, and he did his job just like he's supposed to.
Esther Krakue, as always, thank you so much for joining us. We'll chat to you in a couple of weeks. Now, just before we go, Harry is rarely far from controversy, but he wins some brownie points for frequenting Nando's, the Portuguese-style chicken restaurant chain. The controversy isn't that he goes to Nando's. The controversy is he's known to have ordered lemon and herb, the mildest of the Nando's flavours. Now, I'm not quite sure that is one he can quite recover from. And that's the show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Up next is Newsnight. Good night, and we'll see you next week.